Today you'll see a beautiful shirt that has a cam collar and lapel. Super easy to sew though. In this case, there's no button down feature. You'll see two. One's a hack. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today I'm going to share with you a really cool shirt. I bought this pattern as soon as it was released. I was really drawn into the neckline, although it's one I'm accustomed to sewing. The technique, the look is totally different. And this is a Donny shirt from Friday Pattern Company. This was a pattern that won the votes for the June sew along over on my Patreon page. The orchid tee gets a full sew along from me every month. So it's very freshly out of the machine. What I like the most about it is the neckline. So you have a camp collar and that facing with lapel that falls like that. You'd usually do this on a shirt, so you'd have that facing go all the way down and there'd be an overlap with buttons. The technique on those traditional shirts can be somewhat complicated sometimes because there's no facing at the back, which means you have to do a snip, and yeah, it can be quite a fiddly technique, if not difficult, just fiddly. In this case, it's just simplified so much because it's got a yoke, it's got a double yoke, so that makes the process so much easier. You've got a lot of shirt features here without the button down feature, which I think is really cool. So at the back, you have a little bit of gathers going into that yoke. At the front, you can put a patch pocket. It's sort of boxy-ish in its design, intended to be more cropped, hitting the high hip. But these are features I always wanted to change. When I see a pattern, I look at the liner and I see the potential. If there are a few features that are not my style, I know I can always change them. And length is one of them. I can just make it a little bit longer. And the fact that it's dartless makes total sense. And we'll talk more about that in the fitting, but you can always add a dart. There's non-issue for me. Short sleeves, very simple. In essence, a pretty simple shirt. What gives it the extra detail is all of this going on there, and I really like it. Friday Pattern Company does not have an affiliate program. There's nothing like that. So if you purchase this pattern eventually because you were inspired by my makes, that's all for them. I don't receive commission or payment. This is all produced independently by me. And this is what I mean about the cost sometimes, about running a channel like this. There's a really high cost in a lot of the content that I make. So whenever I do post videos with affiliate links, that does really help me. Not all my videos have affiliate links. There's a lot that are just tutorials, techniques, that sort of thing. But it is a lot of work that I do, and I do need to make an income somehow. So that is why I use patterns with affiliate programs as well. And that's why I also have my Patreon page. Realities of being a sewing content creator, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of cost involved in creating all of this. Just so you know the ins and outs of what I do here. For this one, you want light to medium weight wovens. And I think if you're making the boxy style as intended, that's going to be a little below the waistband of your bottoms. You could get away with making it in a more structured fabric. You know, I always put a little graphic here of the fabric styles and I divide them into structured or drapey. So the structured ones are going to be easy for you to work with. I think if it's a little boxy but short, I think it's okay. So you can use cotton lawn, 100% linen, chambray, shirting, seersucker, all that type of fabric is going to be amazing. Now the look I wanted, because I want my top to be a little longer, sort of hitting the mid-hip, I'd rather use a fabric that's a little drapey. You have the rayon linen blends, you have tencel twill, you have rayon, crepe, silk. I really wouldn't go too lightweight with this design because of all the facings and lapels and collars that need to be interfaced. I think you just have a nicer result if your drapey fabric wasn't that lightweight. So just my opinion here, if I was doing this in 100% rayon, for example, I would interface a lot more than the pattern recommends, just to make sure all of this isn't going to collapse. But that's not the case. I'm not doing that for both of my versions. The one I made as per the pattern and the hack, I'm using rayon linen blends. The composition of them is a little different. The blue one you're going to see is a typical blend, the most common one you ever see, which is 55% linen, 45% rayon. And then the second version, the hack, that is 70% linen, 30% rayon. They are both the same weight. They feel sort of very similar. One will have a little bit more drape than the other. You need some interfacing, and that's all the other notion you need. The sizing goes from extra small to 7X, and that goes up to a 62, 63 inch hip. It's clearly stated on the pattern that it's drafted for a B cup and a height of 5'6". So the fact that it's drafted for a B cup makes total sense in the fact that it's a dartless design. Usually you can get away with not having a dart when you have a smaller cup size like an A or a B. In my case, I have a C sewing cup size. I know doing the full bust adjustment is going to make a huge difference for me at least, especially in the way the garment hangs on the side and that it's not going to be shorter in the center front, that sort of situation. For me, doing the full bust adjustment is worth it. It literally takes 3 minutes of my time to just do a few lines, do a few cuts, do everything, and it's just really easy to do once you do it over and over and over. So it's a non-issue for me. I have a really detailed video on the channel on how to do this. Have a look at that. I'm sure you're going to get it, and if you start doing it frequently, you won't be concerned when it's going to really improve your fit. I have a larger cup size. I want the best fit I can get, and if doing this small adjustment there is going to get me a dart, it's going to make a huge difference, and I'm going to feel so much happier. Regarding the ease and the length, you have a nice amount of ease at the bust, but the ease is a little less at the hips, and that's just because it's sort of straight on the side. So if I was going to make this in the cropped original length, I would just cut out my extra large and just sew it and be happy. But because I want mine to be 3 inches longer, I can't just extend it 3 inches longer. By the time it hits my mid-hip, especially because I have an hourglass figure that goes out, quite pronounced. If it's longer, it's going to just end up hitting a wider part of my body. So I did need to adjust, add the length I needed, 3 inches, and I just added ½ an inch extra and then just tapered it out. Gives me an extra 2 inches, which is going to make it just fall nicely at the mid-hip where I want it to be and not at the high hip or the waist area. So think about things like that when you want to lengthen your patterns. Don't just go boom all the way down. Depending on your body shape, you might end up with really fitted hips. If I was making this for my mom and making it longer, I would just lengthen, and that's because she uses a larger size on the bust and a smaller size on the hips. Her hips are sort of the smallest part, inverted triangle situation. Think about your shape and how this would actually fit you if you just lengthened it. In my case, I did need to add that little bit on the sides. Extra large with a tiny bit of hip ease, and also that full bust adjustment gave me an inch of ease at the hip. So all that extra ease at the hips was welcome because mine was just going to be longer. If you have access to my exclusive content over on Patreon, you can see the whole thing there. I have the entire sew along for this pattern over on my Patreon page, the orchid tee. But over here, I'm just going to focus on sharing about how the collar and the lapel comes together with that yoke. It's so easy to do, very stress-free. It's easier than you think. So let's see. There's not many pieces that need to be interfaced. One of them is a collar piece. Now you cut 2 of these. They are the same for the upper collar and the under collar. So the layer that you see on top has already been interfaced. The layer I have on the bottom hasn't been interfaced. When I put my pattern piece on top and with my rotary cutter, I'll cut them out both at the same time. That's way to make sure both are going to be exactly the same. This is the facing piece. It's a short little facing because remember there's no button placket there. So I've already got a piece interfaced that's slightly larger than what I need. That's ready to go, both layers. And then it doesn't mention it in the pattern, but I've interfaced the top of the patch pockets. There's only 1 patch pocket in the pattern, but I'm going to do 2 probably. So this is all block fusing, and I do it every single time for anything I sew. Over here we see the sleeve. This is the back. It's cut on the fold. This is the center. Over here you have a little notch where you'll gather a little bit into the yoke right there. You can see a little bit of stripe peeping at the back. I'm going to have an internal yoke with a contrasting fabric. This is the collar. There's 2 layers here. The top layer is interfaced, the bottom layer is not. And over here we have the front. This is the facing for the front. Both layers are interfaced, and a patch pocket with the interfacing on the top. I'm going to be using a universal needle number 90/14 for this project. It's perfect for this type of linen rayon blend, so it's a nice choice here. And I've just got matching blue polyester thread over there. I'm just going to sew our collar, both layers here together. They were cut the same, they're exactly the same, and we have one edge that's curved like this. This is the bottom. You find notches here on the bottom, so this is not what we're sewing. This is what's actually going to be sewn onto the neckline later. What we want to sew now is this short end across the straight edge and down the short end as well. The interface collar layer is the one that's going to be on the visible side, upper collar. Non-interfaced one will be on the underside. And so I want to push the seam allowance towards the under collar. So I'm just going to fold these onto themselves right here where I have the intersecting seams. And I just grab them really firmly and flip fiddle with my fingers there, and you get a really nice sharp point. I don't really think you need to trim down 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, especially here where it's really straight. So I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to head over to the iron and press it. Give it a good kneading up. Pressed, I have transferred my marks over to the right side so I know where to line everything up later, and I'm going to use my 1/4 inch presser foot to top stitch around there. I'm going to be using the same thread to top stitch. I don't want to do anything contrasting. I want this to be nice and discreet. If you don't yet have a 1/4 inch presser foot, you're missing out because it makes the results so beautiful, so precise, and so professional. Now at the bottom, I'm just going to baste these together. I'm still going to use my presser foot. I'm just going to lengthen the stitch length a little. It's just to baste them together, and then this is just one piece. We have 2 yoke layers here. What we want is the outer layer, which is the main fabric. And now I'm just going to take my front pieces and align at the shoulder seams, right sides together. And now we're going to sew these at 3/8. Now what we're going to do is put our neckline here on the table, everything right sides up. We're going to take our collar. Remember, we had basted it, so it's just one piece. When you end up wearing this, you want the interface side to be on the top, so you want the interface side facing up. So if you look in here, you can see the interfacing. So what you want is the under collar, which is the non-interfaced one, to touch the neckline here, right sides together. I've got little notches that I marked there. Center back is going to match the center back of this yoke, and these are going to match the shoulder seams here. Same as this little mark right there. Make sure to push the seam allowance of the shoulder towards the back here. When we come over to the front, we're going to have that little mark right there. I've got it marked in yellow. That's where the edge of the collar is going to reach. Make sure this is very accurate here so that the lapel ends up looking symmetrical. I think this is an easy mistake to make, where we leave this one a little bit this way, a little bit that way, and then the width of the lapel doesn't look symmetrical in the end. So yeah, that's something to pay a close attention to. Got it pinned nicely there, everything matches. That's why stay stitching the neckline is so important. We're just going to baste the collar to the neckline with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm also using my 1/4 inch presser foot just to keep it neat. The final stitch here will be done at 3/8. So this is within the seam allowance, and I'm just using a 4.5 stitch length here just to keep the layers together. Make sure you check underneath that you don't get any pleats because we are sewing 2 curved areas together. Our front facing pieces, and I'm going to do a couple of guide stitches as well because we need to press some of these seams to the wrong side. One of them is this curved edge right here, and this bottom short end. And we're going to do the exact same thing for the inner yoke layer. So this is the right side of the fabric. We're going to go ahead and press the shoulder seams in by 3/8. The guide stitch is so easy. The thread actually makes the fold happen on its own basically. Let's place it right sides up and unfold that, just extend it. Now we're going to take our facing pieces and align them here, keeping this edge of the facing folded but this seam unfolded right there. And we're going to sew these together like a little short shoulder seam here. So we're going to start with one side. Let's just extend this here. This is going to be right sides up. This collar doesn't need to be extended. It needs to be actually like this because we're going to catch it in between our facings. And now we're going to take the corresponding side and place these right sides together right here. Remember, we have the facing and the yoke. In between, we have the collar that's already been basted onto the neckline. So now it's just about matching everything up. Here we have the little line on the facing that's going to match the edge right here, and it should match the edge right there. Everything's good. I'm going to take my sweet time matching all of this up. I did end up hand basting this. It's just going to be so much easier. I kept pins at locations that I really want to be precise. I'm not going to remove the pin until the last second. And that's just where the collar is there. I don't want that to move in any way, shape or form. It's a 3/8 seam allowance. Remember, it's from that dot that we start, we leave the rest hanging. I just pressed a button on my machine that just does a reinforced stitch to start there. I'm also going to finish this and then start again on the corner. I don't think 3/8 is a huge seam allowance that you would need to trim smaller. I would just leave it, but if you want, you can trim it a little tiny bit. And all around these curved areas, I'm just going to do some snips every 5/8 of an inch or so because the neckline is curved the whole way around. The next step is a snip. I really dislike doing snips in sewing, but sometimes there's no other way. From the edge up to the dot, we're going to cut, but not all the way through, just close enough right there so that this can open up and extend. And this is on both sides. Let's just do it. What we need to do now is bring these close together here, short facings like this, and now we want to sew just these little short ends, and I guess that's why you had to snip, so you could have the access. So we want to keep the main shirt away, tucked in there. We don't want to sew any of that. We just want to finish this little vertical seam, this. So I'm going to pin it and start sewing right on the dot without catching anything underneath, and sew all the way to the end, extending this little fold right here. Okay, so there we go. We didn't catch anything under here, and what we need to do now is press the seam open. I've pressed that open and repressed this so it's nice and closed at the bottom. Now that we've sewn this area, we need to finish sewing the center front of the top. So we're going to flip this. We're going to push all this facing out of the way. That's why we have a snip there also. We're going to start from there and then sew all the way to the bottom, 3/8 seam allowance. And then we can press it open and our center front seam is going to be done. So just make sure all of this is out of the way, that you're starting at a very precise point here, only 2 layers right there. Put the needle exactly where it has to be, reinforce. This is also why you needed to have this area serged ahead of time. So what we've got inside here is a type of intersection of seams right there. I've done something similar with V-neck lines that have a facing. So when we flip this to the inside, we're going to get like a V neckline here. So you can see how this eventually is just going to come over, and that seam's going to match that seam. That's going to be top stitched down, but we still need to flip these facings right sides out. This interfaced one is the one that's going to be visible on the outside. So whenever I have that situation, I just fold these seam allowances onto themselves, going towards the one that's going to be not seen. That's where I want the bulk to go. So it's the same thing we did for the collar. Just fold them, hold the seam allowance tightly in there and flip it, and you'll get a really nice point right there. Let me show you what I've already done. I've already pressed the shoulder seams. I've already pressed this really nicely. Remember, we had snipped inside, so the curve is going to lie very nicely. I basically want to lay this facing as flat as it can be right here. I'm going to work on one side first, and while it's flat here at the eye end, I want to hand baste it down. I'm going to press this area in place and down here as well. Now that that's pressed and very flat, I'm going to go ahead and baste this shoulder to fix that yoke that's hanging loose right now. And then I'm going to go down and hand baste over here while this is there and not moving anywhere. Then I'm going to go ahead and fiddle with the other side and hand baste the other side. And then we can go ahead and top stitch it down. So I've hand basted that down, and now I'm just going to make my way down the facing. I couldn't really just trust a whole bunch of pins to keep this exactly neat. So this is just the perfectionist in me. I'm doing this a little distance away from where I'm actually going to stitch so that I don't catch these. As you can see, it's looking so neat there. Everything's nice and flat and hand basted. This is where I'm going to start. I'm going to let my needle drop there, but I'm not going to back tack. I'm going to use my blind hem presser foot with the needle to the left to do this really neatly and just follow the outline of the facing. This is my Donny shirt. It's so pretty. I used a different yoke inside just to make the sewing a little easier to see, and also to personalize, and also to save fabric, because I have just enough of this blue linen left for a pencil skirt, so I didn't want to wreck that by cutting another yoke inside where no one's going to see it. Here are my short sleeves. I have hand hemmed everywhere. I just like hand hemming if I have the time. The garment just looks so much nicer in my opinion. So I'm not against hand hemming. If this had been a print, I would have done it with a machine, definitely. Here is the collar. I did top stitch the collar, but I chose not to top stitch this lapel because I found that in this area it could end up looking ugly. And then you have that center front seam that goes all the way down. There was only one pocket on the pattern. I just put 2. I disregarded the marks on the pattern for the placement of it. I just figured it out myself and decided where that was going to look a little better on me. And at the back, You have your yoke with slight gathers, it's very slight, and then we have a hand hem at the bottom as well. My basta is very discreet, it's partially covered with the patch pocket. Like you can't see the tip of the da that's behind the patch pocket. That's how it looks like on the inside. This shoulder seam is enclosed, the back seam is enclosed. This shoulder seam is at your shoulders, so you'll see in other styles that sometimes the yoke comes forward a little bit over to this side. Not in this case, this is actually on the shoulder. The sleeve cap doesn't have tremendous amounts of ease, so it was really easy to set in. The pattern has you do it on the flat and then sew this little seam with the side seam. I never like that. I'm just never gonna do that, no matter what pattern it is, woven and knits. I'm just gonna set it on the round, and I do love that. I have a video on the channel about that controversy, and I tell you my reasons if you wanna know a little bit more about that. And I also have a video on the channel that shows you in detail the way I like to set in my sleeves. So have a look at those videos. I'm gonna style these with some bottoms you've already seen. Just a couple of hours ago, I showed you my white denim Allegro pull-on pants. And I'm also gonna style them with my wide leg navy Icaria pants from Each to Stitch. Those I shared on the channel a couple of days ago on Tuesday. So perfect, I mean, perfect. This is my first Donny top from Friday Pattern Company. I added 3 inches to the length. I think the original length was too cropped for me. I used a linen rayon blend in blue. I think from far away it looks like denim, but it's not. And I love blue with blue with blue. Everything I'm wearing here. This is my glissando skirt from Love Notions. I also did a full bust adjustment. I have a basta and it does help with the feet on the side to get less drag lines. It is a boxy-ish design, slightly curved hem, and I'm really happy with this length. I think it's what I feel most comfortable in. Up closer you'll see that it's got a really lovely lapel and collar, but it doesn't have the button down feature. It's got short sleeves that are super comfortable, and at the back you have a yoke. There's slight gathering under the yoke. I always like that in a shirt. There you can see my basta generated with a full bust adjustment, patch pockets. The technique to do this camp collar and facing is really easy. There is a center front seam and the facing inside is top stitched down, and it was a really enjoyable project. Next, I've paired it with my Icaria pants from Each to Stitch. Super flowy pants in navy. I love combining different tones of blue together, and I've got snake print leather accessories here. Because this top is not so long, I think I could pull it off with wide leg pants. Here it is tucked in so you can see the details of the pants, although I would never wear it tucked in. This shirt is a little bit more structured, and that's why I wouldn't tuck it in. I just feel the bulk of the fabric inside the waistband. So just wearing it loose I think is okay. And I don't follow all the fashion rules you see everywhere. I prefer to be comfortable, and I'm really happy with the look here. I couldn't ignore my new Allegro pants made out of white denim, thrifted jeans I deconstructed to make new, and the blue and white looks really nice together. These are more slim fit pants, still comfortable and pull up, and the combination of the blue and white is just so fresh and so summery. I've also got my snake print leather accessories here that I think give the outfit a bit of interest. I really love the style of the shirt with these pants. And the hack, I had it in my mind the whole time I was making this blue one. Before I show you my second version, just let me share what I did to the pattern piece. The hack is super simple. I just wanted something that was totally open from the top to the bottom so that I could wear like a little light layer. I didn't want an overlap, I didn't want buttons, nothing like that. There are less permanent solutions to closing it with these little pins I found with a little hook type situation that I could put on there and use or just remove. So I just wanted a clean facing, and the change to the pattern is so easy. And then even the sewing is a little easier in my opinion. So let's just see a little bit. Because you have the center front seam and the collar coming from just at the neckline area, we have a short facing that finishes right there. The original pattern piece only goes up to here. So that is the pattern piece. Because I want my top to be fully opened, I want the facing to go all the way down. So now I just extended this piece, keeping the same original width, and just lengthened it all the way down to the hem. That's all. It's not super hard to do. It looks a little messy, but I'm at the stage where I'm sandwiching the collar between the facings and the main. So you can see my long facing just goes all the way down to the hem. When I sew this together, I'm going to be doing a horizontal seam there and flipping it. That'll give me a really neat center front on both sides. And it's just a long seam all the way around and flipping it to the other side. Much easier than the technique of the actual shirt where you had to just sew up to a point. You know the gist. This actually takes a shorter time than the other method. And I'm just going to get a nice little open front with the nice lapel and the collar and everything else the same. Here's my second version. This one is looking a bit more red on screen, but just imagine a really nice pink. It's a really beautiful pink. It's like a fuchsia. It's a very rich color. I think it matches me very well. It's the only type of pink I like. Pastels don't agree with my skin tone. I look pretty awful actually. This one is 70% linen, 30% rayon in the blend. Lovely. It's a little bit more structured. You can tell for sure there's a lot more linen in here than the previous version. Very easy to work with. If you see here, I used the same contrast for the inner yoke. So I had that fabric on hand and I think they look beautiful. Leftover cotton shirting. I made a melody dolman from Love Notions and I've had a little bit left over that I've used for things like that. Feels lovely on and it sort of matches the weight of the main fabric. Again, I have enough left over for a pencil skirt that I'll eventually make. So if I could save with this piece, which takes up a bit, you know, of length of the fabric, I'll do that. All the sewing construction was the same. It's just that you can see this is fully open like this, all the way down to the bottom. It's finished neatly. The facing stops at the bottom and the hem is behind it. And I've done all that hem by hand. Something I did different here is I didn't fold the seam allowance in. I just serged it. It's interfaced right there and it's hanging super neat. I didn't need to top stitch that. Pressing it is enough. This is structured fabric. So just serging the edge was okay for me. I was going to be less bulky than folding it in like I did with the blue one that was top stitched down. So it's still neat. It's still very nice. I think if you have matching thread, you can't go wrong and it's a really neat, acceptable finish inside. You know, I didn't want to follow the instruction of folding it in and top stitching. I think it would have just ruined how this falls and the drape of it. So small changes, but in essence, pretty much the same thing. This is the solution I found. It's like these little pins that you just put on and one side has the hook and the other side has this little thing. I just found this in a local shop that sells hair things. A hook and eye, but you don't have to sew it into your garment. You just pin it through and then you can remove it and whatever. I also bought one with black details. This is the one I chose for now. And it's a great solution if I just want to pin it right there at the height of my bust or just wear it open, and otherwise I think it looks pretty. So this is exactly what I wanted, a little light layer to go on top. And it's just so pretty. The color makes me so happy. Even though I live in hot climate, I think little layers like this can go a long way for me, for my lifestyle. I love the look. And with linen, it's always a great choice for summer. I mean winter, but it's still really hot. I mean, look at me. I'm in short sleeves. The weather here can fluctuate from 50 degrees, where I'm super cold and I'm layering up, and then in the middle of the day it's like 85 degrees. So I can range from sweaters to shorts to sandals to bare feet to Ugg boots in one day. A garment like this for me is something I can rock all season, and you'll see it styled two simple ways. One with my Icaria pants, navy blue, the wide leg pants, beautiful. They're still 20% off. And the other way is all white underneath with my brand new Allegro pants that I made out of a thrifted pair of jeans. And I think the pink and the white look so fresh and so summery. Here is my second version of the Donny, this time in pink. This is a linen rayon blend, a little more structured than the blue one, and I have a hack where the front is fully opened. Navy pink is a really nice combination of colors in my opinion. These are my wide leg Icaria pants from Itch to Stitch. I have a navy cami underneath, and I have a non-permanent solution there to close it up in the center if I want to. It's like a hook and eye with pins that you can remove if I want to close it up there. This is the same length, the same gathers at the back, the yoke, the collar. Everything is just the same, it's just that the facing is extended. I have a little less top stitching on this one just to keep it clean. I've also done hems by hand. You can see the front pinned or unpinned. I could wear that closed or just loose, whatever. And it's just the perfect little light layer in linen. Perfect for this type of weather. You can see it opened. Whatever I want to do, I can remove those pins as well. So I love non-permanent solutions like this. And I love the combination here with the wide leg pants. Here's my Donny shirt hack again, but this time over white. I have a white tank top with my white Allegro pants, and I love the pink and white combination here. Different type of silhouette for the pants, slightly more slim fit, a little bit cropped to show off the pink shoes, silver handbag. The pink is just everything. I love those little pins that I found and having the option to wear this either closed or open. I think because this is so bright and pink, just having one color underneath tones the outfit down a little bit. Having this top completely open in the front was something I really wanted to have, and I think the drape of this fabric is perfect for it. I know I'm going to be wearing this a lot. I really hope you enjoyed seeing all that styling. I love doing that. I know I love watching fashion content, and I'm thinking, imagine they had to make all of that. Well, that's my case. That's what I do. I just have to make everything, well, most of it. So I love the fashion and the styling part of it. Maybe in another life, I would have a fashion type content channel, but no, I'm just not doing that. I prefer the sewing. I love my Donny shirts, and I probably sound like a broken record because I always say if I'd had more time, I would have made more. It's the absolute truth. I love the blue one that's like the typical shirt that you just pull on. It's so nice. And then my little topper, my little pink layer, oh my gosh, what can I say? It's just so pretty, so me. I know I'm gonna feel amazing when I wear it out. I love the clean look on the front with no buttons. I know I'm definitely gonna make this one again, and one I would make for sure is a long sleeve version. I know my mom would love this. She would love it so much. So I'm probably gonna make one for her when I see her. I'd love to just extend it and make a shirt dress, put a little casing around the waist just to give some definition to the boxy style. I mean, yeah, the sleeveless version. I mean, there's so many things I could have done. Hope you enjoyed this one. Remember that the carrier pants from Each to Stitch are 20% off through Monday. You saw these in the styling clips, so yeah, that gave you more options if you've already watched that video for the styling. Have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you back on the channel with more fun sewing. Bye.